Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Well, welcome to this next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. Today I'm joined by two-thirds of an organisation called The Big Simple. I'm here with Lily Bellini and Susan Marmot. Unfortunately, Louise Scott isn't able to be with us. Lily, Susan and Louise all came together through an understanding called the Three Principles and through an organisation called One Thought, who you've heard me talk about before in the past. But they've also got strong links into the criminal justice system. Both Lily and Susan worked with an organisation called Beyond Recovery that goes into prisons and helps prisoners understand the way their experience is created moment to moment. And Louise is a solicitor. And the combination of their experience today has brought them together in this project that they're working on. For my understanding, the Big Simple is a social enterprise. It's aimed at care leavers and young people that might be at risk for some reason. And I just thought it would be wonderful to hear from them today and hear what's going on in their work. So I don't know if I've done you justice, if there's anything else you want to add to that, either of you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having us on. And I think that was an excellent introduction, really. I don't know if there's anything to add at this point.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting us, Dave. It's lovely to be here. And we want to thank everyone who's going to take the time to listen to this podcast as well. So Susan and I have worked many years, as you said, here, Dave, with really kind of what are considered very difficult demographics and people with, problems with the law, in prisons, inmates, in the community. We've done 5 years now for another organization called the Slice of Happiness, with people with addiction and traumatic past, all sorts, mental health issues. And what we keep coming up with, it's a common theme, is that people find it really hard to like themselves, to respect themselves, to love themselves. So we thought, given that this topic is relevant to us personally as well, we thought we would explore in this space what, from the understanding we have about the mind and life now that we have acquired through the Three Principles, how does it happen that people, and is it possible to go from self-loathing to self-love? And if it is possible, how does that happen? It kind of happened to us. And so we purposely chose a strong word like self-loathing, because I personally would have been embarrassed to admit that I had that. But I did for many years. It was kind of covered up and it was a bit in disguise. I wouldn't have called it self-loathing, but it certainly felt like that. So it is relevant, not just for, demographics with, very dark, traumatic pasts. It's relevant for all of us. So we thought we would do that today. And there seems to me and to us, there seems to be a kind of an ocean between one and how do we navigate from one to the other? It's like a forest, a thick forest, a maze. How can we get there? So most of us, I certainly did. I tried many things to feel better about myself, to like myself a little bit better. Also there was a lot of denial. I wasn't fully aware about that. What that feeling was, that painful feeling that will come up at times, even for trivial things. I will do something not as good or perfectly as I thought I should do, and then I will fall into that feeling. To me, the word self-loathing kind of nails it. So, but it's extraordinary how a simple understand of the mind and a waking up to who we truly are beneath the ideas we have about ourselves can take us effortlessly, naturally, from one place to the other, instead of being out there and getting exhausted by doings and things that we think, oh yeah, if I do that, if that happens, then I will feel a bit better about myself, a little bit more confident, a bit more. And I was such a doer. I got absolutely exhausted by all of that until I came across this understanding, and very gently, very kindly, this has taken me by the hand without even me realizing, from one feeling to the other feeling of like, oh, actually, I'm okay. Actually, I'm more than okay. Saying that I love myself now doesn't feel wrong. Before I would say, just try and convince myself. Now I feel it. It's a feeling of ease about myself and who I am. So
That's lovely.
We thought we would explore this, if that's okay, Dave.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sounds great.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
That's a lovely introduction to it, Lily, and so many ideas were popping as you were speaking. Yeah, it is a topic dear to our hearts, not only because of our own experience, but because I was thinking how when we do our programs, it's at the point where we start to see people falling in love with themselves that we know, the work is done. It's the real part where everything starts to turn around and people start to be less interested in all the stories they've always had about themselves, that they've lived within, those ideas about themselves, and start to get free of those and drop into who they are underneath all those stories. And that really is an indicator that people are starting to see something about what we share in these programs, something deep and fundamental and true, that you can't see till you see, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Sounds all a bit cryptic, but that's what happened to us and what changed our lives, and what happens during the programs that we teach. And we all innocently, often in childhood, develop ideas about ourselves from things that happen, things that we pick up about ourselves, from perhaps something somebody says. I mean, I'm thinking about myself, and I feel a bit bad saying this because, I have a different perspective on my childhood now, but certainly one that I lived with for a long time was this idea that, if I ever came home from school and I had something that was really important that had happened to me, or I wanted to share, and I said it to my mother, it was like she didn't really hear me. She wouldn't really respond, and it would sort of fall flat, and I stopped bringing home things or stopped talking about things and just didn't really share and kept everything to myself. But there were so many conclusions that I made from that I innocently made up from that. that I see a very different perspective on today. I mean, probably my mum had other things on her mind. She was distracted. She had her own issues, but I made it all about me and what was wrong with me, that she didn't listen to me, that she didn't care about me, that she wasn't interested in me. And I carried all these things for years and years and years, that what I said didn't have value. You know, there's so many ideas that so much what we say now, so much story I added to one thing. But I carried that all the way through life purely because I had this misunderstanding about the mind and the way thought worked. And that kind of all ties in for me into, you know, I made up that and other things of reasons why I wasn't lovable. Bad experiences, bad things that had happened in relationships. And every time they happened, I'd add another, you know, I'd make it very solid. So somebody broke up with me or didn't listen to me or didn't seem interested in me, or I felt I couldn't be myself, and I'd make all those reasons why that meant I wasn't lovable. And these affected my life in so many different ways and kept me very stuck and made me make choices for myself that really weren't good because of my low self-esteem. And these things, this was very sticky, and it stayed with me until I came across this understanding. And it wasn't until I came across this understanding that I was able to really see what was involved in learning to love yourself, because I really wanted that for myself, and I'd really tried. And I'd worked, I'm using what are these speech
inverted commas,
inverted commas to say work. I'd worked really hard on trying to love myself, and the way I'd gone about it was trying to improve myself, trying to make myself more worthy in my own eyes. And that's pretty much a never-ending job, because of course you might feel better for a bit, but then you can drop again. And that's what happened to me, and that's what happened to most people and to many people we work with. And it wasn't until I started to understand a little bit about how thought works that it started to make less sense to listen to all of my old thinking. I want to get into that a bit more, but I also want to pause maybe, Lily, and let you come in again and then get back to that.
I was listening to you, and do you know what? What strikes me about what we do with all those ideas we have, or how we end up feeling a certain way. There's one small thing that actually turned into a massive thing for me that happened when I was small. I was 8 or 9, and I had this difficult relationship with my mom, and she wasn't really quite present, and she never really engaged. I was listening to you, thinking back when he came home from school, and I don't remember ever feeling a sense of connection or warmth. But anyway, that was in the background. And I remember she came to a play at school, a school play. And I was doing my thing on stage, and I was 8 or 9, and I was forgetting the lines, or I don't know, I was doing my best. I was up there acting my little part, and I forgot some lines, I think, and I looked at my mom in the audience, and she kind of shook her head and raised her brows. And oh gosh, if I think about it now, I've had that deep feeling of like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? I'm not good, and self-loathing really already. And so after that, I that stayed with me. That's not a big thing. It's very kind of small, kind of shaking of the head and the raising of the brows of my mom stayed with me for years. Even if I didn't think about that, that feeling stayed with me. Now, she did that. I don't know exactly why, but I came up with an explanation and an idea of why she did that. And that is what happened. And I know Susan wants to continue on and explain why, what happens. What happens when we get to feel a certain way? Something happens and we get to feel a certain way. And to me, that it's huge. When I thought back, my mom did what she did, and I'm not even sure why. Maybe she was thinking about something. Maybe she was actually thinking, no, you should be doing that better. But that's almost beside the point, because with this understanding, I got to see that in a completely different way, because something happened and then I did something with it in my little head, and I continued doing it for the rest of my life until I came across this and I realized what actually happens. Because it looks like we are taking in someone else's behavior and we are feeling someone else's behavior 100% of the time. We are feeling life and what happens from the outside. But in actual fact, what happens is that we get into a certain kind of thinking about that. We take on ideas about ourselves or about anything because of what happens, and we experience that. So it was incredible to look back and see that that's actually all that really happens in terms of feeling the way that I felt for a long time, and where that feeling came from. It really looked like, in conventional psychology, we want to look back and analyze and understand why we feel a certain way. And we look on the outside, we look at the behavior of other people, we look at the event. And we never actually stop to consider there is something else going on. And so this is what is so life-changing. It's a game changer to realize that there is something else going on and it's happening in our own heads.
It also makes everything much simpler, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When it's rather than trying to track everything that's going on the planet and how that might be affecting me or whoever in this moment, actually the way I'm interpreting things right now is coming through how I'm thinking and feeling in the moment about that stuff, not because of it. Because I might not be conscious of what it is. Your mum might not have been conscious of what you were doing on stage and be shaking her head and raising her brow about something entirely in her mind. It just happened to be that you drew a conclusion based on that. And I think that's endlessly fascinating and absolutely what we're talking about on this podcast. So thank you.
It is. And I'm purposely choosing a simple example that actually had a massive impact in my life because it was simple. And yet this small misunderstanding, and my mother might have really, in a critical kind of way, might have shaken her head because I wasn't doing a good job. Still, I have 3 sons. I know that something like that, each one of my sons would have reacted in a completely, one would have just laughed it off. The other would have gone inwards and think, what's wrong with me? Another, you see, this is always and only depends on what we do with it in our own mind and how committed we remain to the idea we pick up. So that's all we're saying. And Susan has a beautiful way of explaining how it happens and why. But that's an example that we can kind of anchor a bit what we're talking about onto, because then, of course, I spent my life not being able to speak in public, not even read. I went through school feeling petrified of reading in public. And, a psychotherapist would have continued, usually mainstream would continue on to, point to what happened on the outside. And there is a certain degree of relief to understand that, maybe that's why. But there is a deeper why that we completely miss. And when we can get to see that, it's freeing. It's when we realize just how powerful our mind is and how able we are to create anything. Over to you, Susan.
Well, thank you, Lily. I really enjoyed listening to that. And it made me think about how when I had a lot of therapy myself at a certain point in my life. I think it was around 7 years, embarrassingly enough. We go back into our childhood looking for reasons why we feel like we do today. Well, that's what happened to me. So you go back and you pinpoint these things and then you try and analyze why they've had this effect on you. And it made me think when I was listening to you that the difference is we look back on them as facts and then we try and work them out. But now I see it as looking back on a perspective that I saw. And there are many other perspectives, as we both mentioned, like, maybe our mothers were distracted. Maybe our mothers were thinking about something else. Maybe our mothers were critical. We don't actually know. But it's a perspective. And there are many perspectives. And what we mean by perspectives is we can have many different ways of thinking about something. But it's our thinking that creates our feeling, which is just completely different to how we saw it as a kid, where we thought our mother behaving in a certain way made us feel a certain thing. And obviously we didn't know any better and we haven't done anything wrong. But knowing that is just so incredibly helpful, that there are so many different ways that you can think about something. And it's not that you ever have to try and think about something differently, but if you don't go with your first way of thinking about it, a different way shows up. Something else shows up. Like, for example, now, if I'm trying to explain to my husband something that really matters to me, like I was trying with my mother when I was young, and he's not hearing me, I don't think he doesn't love me. I don't think there's anything wrong with our relationship. I think he's distracted. It hasn't got any other meaning. I don't add any other meaning. I don't experience any other meaning. I'll talk to him when he's just got a little bit more bandwidth. It's very, very simple, which is why we called the Big Simple. So, just simply knowing that all of our experiences coming from whatever we're thinking in the moment is really, really helpful. But in terms of self-love, what was really helpful for me is that over all the years, and this is up until the age of 50, which is when I came across the principles, I had been trying to fall in love with myself by trying to improve myself. That was the way, I think I mentioned this earlier, that's what my best way of trying to love myself was. That's the only one I could really come up with. And I knew it was really, really important to love yourself because I'd read it in so many books, and I thought, I'm never going to be able to do romantic relationships well till I learn to love myself, because I'd heard, until you love yourself, how's anyone going to love you? So I knew it was like an important key, but I didn't know how to open the door to have this. And I'd innocently just been going about it the wrong way. It's the only way I could come up with, which was trying to improve myself. What I didn't understand was that we are either in our thinking or we're not. And that is the two things that can happen in any one day. And they happen all day. Get into your head, you think a lot about things, you drop out of your head and you experience something else. And what happens when you drop out of your head, when you stop running all those ideas you have about yourself, all those things that you thought were facts about yourself, when you stop running them all the time, you drop back into something quieter that's beneath that. And I did not know that what I was searching for was already in me. That actually it is our default state to love ourselves. That we drop into this quieter place that's very expansive, where we feel okay, about ourselves. And so I was out there scrambling around trying to find something that was already in me that I felt when I got a bit quieter. And by quieter, I mean when my head just stopped telling me, you're no good, you're no this, you're no that. And when I stopped listening to that, when I left it alone, when I didn't add any story to it, got a bit more spacious, and I dropped into something beneath that, which was what I'd always been searching for, which was my okayness. It's already in us. And the only reason we don't feel it is because we're listening to all the noise.
Yeah, I really hearing you, Susan, and this kind of is highlighting. We very much talk about 2 points, don't we? 2 points, although they're called the 3 principles, but they can be summed up in 2 fundamental truths and points. And you've just covered one, and actually we covered both of them already. But it would be good to to point them out simply, because then, if anyone listening is new, they think, oh yeah, but thank you very much, but how do I stop this? And how, it's like, and yes, we hear about this other self, but we can't quite see it for ourselves. So we did say that all those feelings that we pick up, all those experiences about life and ourselves, don't actually come from events and people and things on the outside. They come from this amazing ability we have to experience what we think moment to moment. We experience our thinking. So the feeling, our experience, our feelings come from the thinking we are engaging with, that is coming through us. And we are thinkers. We are amazing thinkers, and thank God for that, because we wouldn't be having a human experience. So in this understanding, we make peace with the fact that we think. We make peace with what we think. And we start to appreciate that we think. And we start to be interested in this amazing ability we have to think and feel what we think. We lose interest a little bit, not always, with what's happening with the outside and why we're feeling a certain way is because of that person, because we can still fall into that in a second. But we fundamentally know that we are making it all up in this laboratory of experience that we have, and we are born with this incredible, perfect design of experience-making kind of beings that we are. And we start to have respect and gratitude for the fact that we actually have this ability to think up anything, any experience. So that's one thing that happens. We, instead of adding more judgment for what we're thinking and how we're thinking and trying to change what we're thinking, we start to fall into a deeper level of awareness and gratitude for the fact that we as human beings come in this life with this incredible gift, and then we misuse it all the time. But we don't give ourselves such a hard time for that. So that's one thing. And then Susan was talking about this other deeper self. So if we can see that, and it can go the other way around as well, but I'll say more. If we can see what happens with the feelings that we're having and where they come from, then maybe we start overthinking life and we fall into a different kind of self. which is this constant present that actually doesn't age, or it's always there, and it's peaceful. Is a space that is kind of pristine. That is a well of infinite potential that is within all of us to experience deep levels of peace and gratitude and love and creativity. And so there is this other self. So when we say self-loathing and self-love, who is the self? Because we live with a distorted kind of weird ideas of who we are. We make up ideas of who we are. Oh, I'm this, I'm that, I can do this. Oh, I'm this personality. Or we're saying that those are just ideas. And then there is more. There is more. And if we get curious about that more, it's infinite. There is infinite levels of freedom and love that we can feel about ourselves, self-love, but also about everyone and everything. Life. So there is seeing that our feelings come from our thinking and not, so we are not at the mercy of outside circumstances and life. Seeing that is one point. And then becoming interested in this other self that is there, is always there and present and constant, is unchangeable. It can't be touched, can't be damaged, can't be by a mother who's not recognizing her daughter on stage or whatever, by a bad relationship, by trauma. This self can't be touched. So there's these two things happening with this understanding of the mind, which is very simple. But sometimes the most obvious things can't be seen, But we see this through our own deeper internal realizations.
And it's lovely. I think, the cool bit in there for me is that deeper self you're talking about is pure curiosity and wonder. And if we're viewing anything with curiosity and wonder, we're excited about learning something new. And I think that plays all the way back to what Susan was saying at the beginning about, when you're, the people in the courses that you're running and the programs you're running start to see things differently, because that curiosity and wonder is something you can visibly see in people. Their demeanor changes, they become slightly more animated and more alive. They're still the same person. They've just opened their eyes up a little bit more to seeing things in a subtly different way. And that's what's very exciting about this whole topic for me, is because while it might feel like a million miles to go from self-loathing to self-love, actually it's a split second of seeing something differently. And it doesn't require a huge amount of work like you thought originally, Susan. It just requires a moment, and that could come at any time through any form, in that sense of whether it's with someone or on your own, whether it's learning something or just experiencing life in the moment. Something can shift, and that can change the direction of someone's life, and potentially a whole bunch of people's lives, just because they start seeing it all, all that potential in each other. I think that's wonderful, and it's lovely that that's what you guys are doing for people that are struggling.
Thank you, Dave. I love the way you summed it up there, actually, very clearly and concisely, and what's important, and what's important about, that's the reason we do the work. And, we've seen the effect it's had on our own lives by just understanding these few simple things that have completely changed the way we view our life. And it helps us every single day. Every single day we're grateful to know this. And because of that, that's the reason we go out and we share this, because we know life can be easier than we thought it could be. I want people to know that.
That's lovely. It's it's shining a light on things that people are experiencing anyway, but without awareness, I suppose, is probably the best way to do it. Because whether we know our world is created and our experience is created through our own thinking or not, doesn't stop it being that's how it's happening to everybody. It's awareness, and from that comes strength and an ability to be curious about things and go, okay, well, that's interesting. Why might I be feeling like this right now? There's nothing on it other than a bit of curiosity about it, and see where that takes us. I think it's got infinite potential from that perspective, and it's great seeing the audiences that you've been taking this to in the past. I just wondered whether there's anything you wanted to share about where and how you guys operate. Is it all in person? Do you do stuff online? Is it geographically bound? What does that look like if people are interested in the big simple and what you're doing?
Well, we're delivering some programs in person in March, but week in, week out, we do online programs, so it can be either way. And we've found, although it's fun being in the room with people, we do love that. It doesn't affect impact whether we're working virtually or in person. And Big Simple, therefore, can travel anywhere. One vertical.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
And we're willing and happy to help anybody who wants some help. If you know young people who are struggling, or groups of young people who are struggling, please contact us at info@thebigsimple.org, and we'd love to help.
Yeah, we love working with groups of young people. So if you're an organization and you're providing support in any kind to this demographic, then we could have a conversation, and you can ask us how we can tell you maybe how we can help your young adults who are struggling, and we love conversations which open up a space for considering and exploring how this could be helpful, and then take it from there. So don't hesitate, just contact us.
Brilliant. And if you were an individual that thought you fell into your bracket, can they get in touch and join a group that maybe they don't fit into because they're not part of an organization, or that they're not, they've not been introduced in that way? Are they able to join as individuals?
We've had online groups for young people. We would want to have ideally a number of them to, even if they don't know each other, then we could create a group and offer a program. So that's also possible. We also do, if I may.
Please do.
We have to raise awareness what we're doing, and to also raise funds. We offer events for open to all, open to the public, so that we can, because we are self-funding for now. So, for instance, tonight we have a meetup in London, in-person meetup, which we're excited about, where people can come, drop in. We'll do it once a month. And it's an hour and a half in London, Victoria. So that's also a lovely, I think.
Amazing. And that's to raise funds to enable you to deliver programs. Okay.
I mean, the entrance is not expensive.
Yeah. No, but that's if someone was interested in wanting to support and hear a little bit more about what you do, that's a possibility that they could do in London. And if you're doing that on a routine basis, as you said, I'll put the link to that in the in this, so that people can get find out and come along and learn more. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if there's anything either of you particularly want to end with, but I thought that was a wonderful conversation to hear. One, where the topic took us, but also learn how that fits in with what you're doing organisationally and the work you're doing in the world. So firstly, thank you very much for coming. But if there's anything else you'd like to add, please do so.
Yes, I think that we would love to invite everyone to consider that there may be an easier way to experience life. And that doesn't require any practice, any technique, any doing. It's just a listening and an opening up to the possibility of something different and easier and kinder. So.
And I'd like to say also, thank you, Dave, for giving the Big Simple the opportunity to tell people a little bit more about what we're up to.
That's a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming along and joining us. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guest next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.